Hello, we're back, and today we're talking about Paul Saladino's diet. He recently did a new video updating us what he's eating and why he's eating it. So let's find out if things line up, if things make sense, and if it's a diet that you should consider. My name's Shay, I'm a nutritionist and an international level athlete, and Paul is well known to be the carnivore MD, he has called himself, or news articles have called him. I don't really know, but basically he's a big advocate for the carnivore diet, which I'm not really against, to be honest. I just think in some cases it's become a little bit cult, like the old school vegan, but you know, if it works for you, more power to you.
What's up, guys?
Hey, Paul.
I'm going to show you what I eat in a day in
That's why I'm here.
October of 2024. I basically still eat an animal-based diet. It's meat, it's organs, it's fruit, it's honey, it's raw dairy. Tweak some things since last year's video, so I want to show you all the details of this, give you some ideas of how to create this type of a diet in your life. It's something that I think helps a lot of people. I don't think you need to eat exactly like me. I make free educational content because I feel like the mainstream medical system is not telling people how powerful changing the quality of the foods in your diet can be for your health. More muscle mass, better libido, better sleep, weight loss, reversing autoimmune disease like I had eczema. Changing the quality of my diet totally reversed my eczema. I think these things are not talked about by medicine, so that is why I do what I do.
Yes, I completely agree. This is why I'm really skeptical when someone says, oh, I'm a doctor. It's like, okay, well, the medicine sort of whole sector is a little bit cloudy at the moment. A lot of hospitals are going to give you commission, and you know they're going to treat you better if you're getting commissions on these pharmaceuticals. Believe it or not, every pharmaceutical breakthrough has led to an increased prevalence of the disease that the breakthrough is targeting. So for example, breakthrough in diabetes medications, it doesn't actually decrease the prevalence of diabetes because people no longer rely on these lifestyle changes that are actually going to have a larger effect. Like if you take like an antidepressant, right? Exercise is better, but if you have antidepressants, people are just going to take the pill and still not exercise. So the rates of depression might even go higher. It's absurd. So it's very important just to question everything nowadays, particularly if someone's trying to sell you something. Okay, let's continue.
Basically, within half an hour of waking up, I'll have my first pre-surf mini meal, which is raw goat's milk from a local farm. I've actually been to this farm. I add some glyphosate-free honey, and I add about 5 grams of creatine. I might have a little bit of watermelon juice before I go surf, but that is pretty much it. I'm in the car and I'm in the ocean. I try to be in the ocean by 6 a.m. I'll surf for a couple hours.
So a few points here. Goat's milk, different to cow's milk. The fat content, the protein types and distribution of them are a bit different. Conventionally, it's a little bit nicer on the gut. So if you do have gut issues with cow's milk, you might tolerate goat's milk a little bit better. So I guess that's up to you. Gut health does vary a lot between people and what you respond to. So like most things, do what works for you. Honey, I don't think really has as many nutritional advantages as some people might say. But you know, if you like honey, fair enough, have some honey, it's fine, right? Glyphosate-free, glyphosate is a pesticide. A lot of these studies and researchers are saying, oh, glyphosate's fine in humans. Then why are we wearing hazmat suits to spray it on the plants? A lot of these studies are paid off by, say, grain producers and processed food producers that use glyphosate. So again, maybe you don't trust these people. But yeah, nothing wrong with that meal there. You know, a cheeky bit of watermelon juice, quick digesting carbs before you exercise. We love it.
After I get home from surfing, hopefully I caught a few waves. I'll make scrambled eggs, avocado, mango slices, and some watermelon juice, which I make myself. But there's a secret to the scrambled eggs. Sometimes people think avocado is a vegetable. Wrong, avocado is a fruit. Why do I make the distinction? Vegetables are the leaves, the stems, the roots, and the seeds of plants. They contain more defense chemicals. I'm not a huge fan of them. If you can tolerate vegetables, that's great, but for people like me and a lot of people with autoimmune disease or gut issues, cutting out or eliminating vegetables seems to help with those conditions. Fruit, we know, has much lower amounts of plant defense chemicals. This is the whole idea of an animal-based diet.
Yeah, so if you follow this channel for a while, you'll understand that a lot of what I talk about is to try and hit your micronutrient targets. You know, we have a set list of things that we need to hit to optimize health. And the thought process here, for Paul at least, is like, okay, well, vegetables, he believes some of these have harmful phytochemicals, which I'm personally not that scared of. So it's like, for him at least, if we can just not do these and hit all the targets with things like meat, which don't have these harmful chemicals, then why not just do that? And To some extent, I do agree. I feel good on vegetables, and to be honest, I don't really want to eat a carnivore diet. And Paul used to be just pure carnivore diet, but now he's added in fruits, which I think is advantageous because of the food group of fruits, they have some of the highest, antioxidant quantities, which is fantastic for overall health. And we can't really get that many of these from meat, which is interesting. And vegetables, they have some, I guess, but fruit really takes the top of the food chain as far as getting antioxidants in, so I really agree with fruits as well. If you're trying to support your training, it's pretty hard to do without any carbs. Most of the studies do suggest that switching to like a carb-free diet has a pretty negative effect for most sports, excluding like ultra long distance stuff because they can just be in ketosis the whole time. But for most of us, we're doing like shorter exercise sessions, carbs so advantageous.
Fruit, we know, has much lower amounts of plant defense chemicals. This is the whole idea of an animal-based diet. Why do I call it an animal-based diet? Because it is based around animal foods. What have I had so far today? I've had animal milk, I've had goat milk, I've had some eggs, and then I've added in some of the least toxic plant foods. You'll see as I go through my day that I'm eating fruit, and I'm eating meat, and I'm eating animal foods. And that's basically how I compose my diet. The majority of my calories are coming from animal foods, things like eggs, things like beef tallow, things like steak or meat, things like liver, heart, and things like milk or yogurt and this kind of stuff. And then I'm adding in the least toxic plant foods for most people. Again, if you're thriving, don't change anything about your diet.
Yeah, really balanced point there. Do what makes you feel best. It's such like a simple point, but it just makes me happy because it's not said enough. Like, people just get angry when people do something completely else. It's like, dude, he's happy doing that. Just let him go.
Eat lunch around noon or 1 p.m. during the day, and I'm usually gonna eat something like skirt steak. It's grass-fed, grass-finished, regeneratively raised, Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, about 100 grams. I am gonna do some fresh squeezed orange juice. I get all of my produce from farmers markets here. It's all organic, or so they tell me, and I like to make my own orange juice. I don't worry about sugar in orange juice. I'm very active, and there's tons of research showing that orange juice, watermelon juice, grape juice, all the juices really improve endothelial function inside of your blood vessels. They decrease lipid peroxidation, they decrease DNA damage.
I'm not afraid of juice either. He said, oh, if you're active, you shouldn't be too afraid of sugar. I kind of agree. Also, saturated fat here. Saturated fat is going to be higher in an animal-based diet because it's usually associated with the meat. So what does all this mean? So basically, high sugar can lead to, of course, diabetes over time. And the saturated fat is heavily linked to cardiovascular disease. So why are we not worried about these things? Well, they're kind of tethered together by obesity. Obesity paired with all of this stuff and chronic inflammation really just gets the snowball rolling as far as these diseases. And if you're in shape and you're very active, I really don't believe that, a highest saturated fat intake is going to cause these things. Of course, we would need more studies to prove this, but a lot of the logical reasoning would suggest this. And as for sugar goes, if you have a bit more muscle tissue and if you are very active, this muscle tissue will actually just uptake the sugar out of your blood, so it's not sitting around in your blood. And even if you are in good metabolic health, that insulin response should be a bit stronger if you're in, good shape. So I'm not too scared about sugar, particularly with fruit juice, because if it is freshly squeezed, you are getting some of those antioxidants and that sweet vitamin C, so lovely.
I eat a mix of fruit juice and fruit throughout the day. I get my carbohydrates also from honey, as you've seen. And so I don't worry about orange juice. Obviously, scale the amount of carbohydrates in your diet to how active you are. But I do not believe,
Yeah, that's exactly the point. Like, if you're going out for like a crazy 2-hour session, like an absolute sugar bomb is probably gonna help, believe it or not. But like if you have it later in the day when your insulin response is a bit weakened and then you're just kind of sitting around, that's when it might be a little bit problematic and perhaps pro-inflammatory, but yeah.
I do not believe there is any evidence that fruit or fruit juice contribute to insulin resistance or diabetes in any way, shape, or form in humans. In fact, there is good evidence that watermelon juice and many of the fruit juices actually improve insulin sensitivity and improve glucose tolerance. There's actually been a study done where they gave people watermelon juice, interestingly enough, when they were doing a glucose tolerance test, and those patients' glucose tolerance actually improved when they had the watermelon juice. So don't fear fruit and fruit juice. If you find other sources of carbohydrates work better for you, that's great. This is what works for me. I've got some cucumbers.
So endothelial function is tied to diabetes, and they're linked together by inflammation. Okay, and inflammation can be mopped up with these antioxidants that we are getting from fruits. So there's the kind of reasoning there. Insulin insensitivity and inflammation kind of go hand in hand and kind of breed to create type 2 diabetes. So again, if you're in good health, I wouldn't be too afraid of sugar, particularly if you're getting other nutrients with it, right?
Cucumber here. Cucumber's a fruit, not a vegetable. Again, I'm not a huge fan of the leaves, the stems, the roots, the seeds of plants. I feel better without it. My autoimmune issues, which are eczema and asthma, are much better when I don't eat vegetables. But if you can eat vegetables, knock yourself out.
I love that point, because this diet is, targeting autoimmune diseases. We've seen it with Paul, we've seen it with people like Jordan Peterson and his daughter as well. It's the only way their life is actually enjoyable. So for those reasons, it's like, yes, do what makes you feel best.
Mamonchinos, we call them in Costa Rica. They're also called rambutan, skirt steak, Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, and orange juice that I squeeze myself with some very low heavy metal salt. That's my lunch. I'll probably take a break this afternoon, do a little workout, go down to the skate ramp. Dinner time, it started to rain in Costa Rica, which happens this time of the year. Grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef that I actually got at a farmer's market here. I got some raw liver, and I just do it raw. I freeze it before. I trust the butcher, and I trust that the liver is high quality. There's always a risk to eating anything raw, whether it's raw milk.
Yeah, so I like that little point there about just raw meat. A lot of these carnivorous folk kind of put food safety by the wayside, but good for Paul for mentioning that. Also, I want to mention here that his caloric intake seems really low, and he's probably feeling fine because a lot of these foods are whole foods, particularly meat. It's very satiating per calorie. But the thing is, because you're eating lower calorie, you need to hit these micronutrient targets with less food, right? Think about that, which means the food has to be more dense in micronutrients, which is where the organ meats come in, particularly liver, literally the most micronutrient thing you can eat.
I got some dragon fruit. That stuff is amazing. It's much more available here in the tropics, and it's delicious. And I've got some more watermelon juice and raw milk with honey. You look at things like chronometer, and I'm gonna do a chronometer video follow-up to this whole what I eat in a day, where I show you guys the breakdown.
Yeah, Nastasy is recommending chronometer, or I call it chronometer. I don't really know what's right, but plug your diet into there, see what you're actually missing. Fantastic tool.
Okay, so let me show you guys how I do liver. Swallow it down the hatch just like that. You don't have to do that. I just feel like that's the easiest way to do it. You could also cook it, but if you like the taste, you can chew it. So that's my dinner.
That's actually what I used to do with spinach. I forget what my record was to get down, like, I think it was 250 grams, but I just mix it in with the rest of my food now. But it's pretty funny. You should probably chew your food if it's like quite a large sum of food, but yeah.
That is how I'm gonna end the day. I'll probably eat dinner around 5:30 or something. I go to sleep pretty early because I get up so early to surf. I try and finish eating about 2 hours before I go to sleep, or 3.
As far as sleep health goes, I really believe in distancing that last meal from your bedtime as much as you can. 2 hours isn't that long. I try and push it, as far as I can do so reasonably. If I've had work all day and then also training, of course, that dinner's going to be pushed back a little bit. But when I can do so earlier, I generally get a much better high quality sleep because your body isn't worried about digesting. It's just focused on resting and recovering when you're actually in bed. So distance that as much as you can.
Try not to have blue light after dark. I avoid looking at my computer and my phone, or I put them on the red light settings as much as I can in the evening. And before I go to sleep, I try to calm down and not look at devices. And
I think the diet community altogether is actually quite toxic. I think people end up landing on a diet that works for them, and then because it works for them, they just think it's categorically the best diet. But no, people respond so differently to things. If this means you have to do like an elimination diet and hop on that carnivore and fruit diet for a bit, just to see what works, or maybe you have to cut out a different food group, go no dairy, we're going to respond differently, so it's really worth seeing what you respond best to so you can live the best life. And are we really going to say, oh, Paul, he's going to be in poor health because he's eating, lots of sugar from the fruit and lots of saturated fat from the meat? It's like he's clearly in good shape, he exercises a lot, his sleep health is pretty good, and he's eating micronutrient dense whole foods. Sometimes you got to take your head out of the studies and just look at the bigger picture, do what works for you, and don't get annoyed when people do something differently. Just let them be, dude. But if you enjoyed this, there's some more videos there. I'll see you next time.